Okay, so this is TrickorTreats. Again, back to my project on the Bella Prom, Twilight Prom dress. The first picture that you see here, I've laid out everything to be cut. A little note about laying out patterns, multi-size patterns and all that sort of thing, or choosing your patterns, the sizes and whatnot. A lot of people don't realize this. I see girls making this mistake all the time when I'm at the fabric store, is that the dress size that's listed on the pattern does not correspond to the dress size that you would wear, like if you just bought clothes at a store. You're actually going to go about 3 to 4 dress sizes up, or like 6 to 8 number sizes up when you lay this out. So anyway, so this is being laid out here. The next picture that you're going to see is where I've laid, the bodice part of this is really easy, but when I came to laying out the skirt, obviously the pattern that I was choosing was like a prom skirt, so it's really long. Didn't want it to be that long, and obviously I'm not going to need all those ruffles, so just going to do the top 3 ruffles and figure out where I need to cut it, or I only want to do the 3 ruffles. So if it's going to ask me, like if I'm going to need to do 4 ruffles depending on the length of where I'm going to need to cut this skirt for it to fall like about knee length or so, then it means I'm either going to have to lengthen the ruffles so that I only have 3, or I'm going to have to use the second, third, and fourth ruffles as opposed to the first, second, and third. I've laid it out here so you can see kind of how they'll go, the first, second, and third ruffles, but later on, you don't really see this. I kind of forgot to take a few production photos along the way here, but later on I actually did end up having to skip the first ruffle and use second, third, and fourth ruffles and just move them up, cut off the extra and seam them in a little bit in order to have them placed at the right, like space them apart, right. Third photo here is just showing where I'm trying to keep where I'm cutting it even with one of the other guidelines. So I think I marked it like an inch away from the guideline. I just measured from the waistband down kind of to how long I wanted it to be, from my waist down to about like right above my knee or something. And the next 2 pictures there, I've just kind of marked in place, just an inch above, just taking and actually marking on the pattern. You'll find with multi-size patterns, that's really handy if you've got one of those markers. Mine that I used is double-ended. It's disappearing on one end and the light blue on the other. You can just mark directly on the pattern. If you do all your measuring before you actually cut your pieces, then you can follow the guidelines on the pattern. I don't always go by the measurements on the back of the pattern. Those can be a little screwy because they do add in ease in a few places. But if you look at the finished measurements, usually that's actually printed on the pattern piece. Usually at like bust point, waist point, hip point, you'll see a circle that's quartered with a cross, and that marks what the finished measurements are going to be at those points. So give yourself anywhere from a normal ease is maybe about half an inch to an inch if you want it to be somewhat fitted, but with a little movement. If you've got a fabric with a little give, you might go with half an inch or less, depending on what you want. Just it's not always a smart idea to actually do it at your fitted measurements because you won't be able to sit down. So the next few photos here are post-production photos on the top portion. The next 3 photos, front, back, and the detail at the neck. This had options for either a tie neck or a button neck, and I went with button neck. Didn't really want to mess with the tie. Don't have the skirt on it there, but as I go later, like further down here, there's some pictures of production on the skirt. I actually did, I think I mentioned this a minute ago, but I actually did cut the first, second, and third ruffles for the skirt, and I stitched them on. I actually even just basted it to the top portion of the dress and tried it on. I was not happy with it. The ruffles were spaced too closely together, I felt, and the skirt came a little higher than I wanted it to. I felt like the dress that I was trying to copy, the bottom ruffle seemed like it was about T length, which is just maybe at calf or just above the calf below the knee. That's kind of where I wanted it to come. I wanted it to fall a little more slimly too. Felt like the skirt flared more than I wanted it to. It was just very 50s looking to me, where very hourglass type of shape, and I wanted it to fall a little bit more slim. So as you can kind of see in one of the photos there, I've had to stitch away from my original stitching, stitch it in, and anywhere from an eighth of an inch all the way down to maybe about an inch by the time I got to the end of the hem to try to slim the skirt out a little bit. You can probably see in that picture where there's some threads loose where I had to rip out the ruffles. I take them all back off. And of course then use the second, third, and fourth ruffles instead of the first one. So on the next picture there is where I've actually stitched some stay stitching at the stitching line on the ruffles, and then decided to clip it and fold it back with an iron, as opposed to putting right sides together and stitching it and then folding it down, ironing it flat, and then stitching it again on the top side. That was a lot of work, and it's hard to actually see where you're placing the ruffle. You have to just have marked it really well. So what I did instead was just, on the second time around with the ruffles, was just fold it down, iron it flat so that I could put wrong side to right side and actually lay it out the way you would actually see it when I was pinning it. So it was a lot easier to control exactly where I was pinning it. I also used, not shown here, but I also used a measuring tape to measure from the top of the skirt down to where I was actually pinning the lowest ruffle and keep that uniform all the way around the skirt. I did that again with the second ruffle, and of course the first ruffle at the top just aligns with the seam edge. So last two pictures there are obviously post-production on the dress. I think I maybe still have a little hemming to do, but you can't really tell. And then me in the dress. So that's it. And I felt like it went pretty easily. I probably would have, it took me, I think I started on Monday of the week that I started it, and I finished it up like Saturday morning. Mostly finished it up Friday, and I think I had to do like some clipping, a little extra stitching or something like that on Saturday morning. Probably would have actually gotten it done on Wednesday if I hadn't decided to alter the skirt and rip all the ruffles back out. So it went pretty quickly. It's pretty easy pattern to do, and it wasn't hard to combine the two patterns. So anyway, that's just sort of in a nutshell one project, and hopefully I'll be back again with another project. I currently have about, I think, 3 Star Wars costumes in progress that I've just sort of left off with. I kind of tend to start projects and not finish them, so maybe I'll get back to that one and document the end of that one. So